Welcome in, everybody. It's a Tuesday Texas live stream. Let's talk some Texas football. 18 sleeps until the Longhorns play a football game against the Colorado State Rams, and we have a lot to talk about. Some of it's good news, some of it not so good news. I'm Aaron Hogan. He is Rod Babers. He is CJ Vogel, and we'll go for about an hour tonight. We will certainly take your super chats and your questions and comments. I'm certain there will be many as we get closer and closer to the 2024 football season. Obviously, you guys have been talking about the Longhorns ranked 4th in the AP poll, which is out. Also, more news coming down today from that side of the conversation. But, CJ, let's start right in. And, Rod, with the news that dropped this afternoon, worst fears again realized with the injury to another running back. Last week, it was C.J. Baxter with a LCL and PCL tear in his knee that's going to require surgery. Now it's another running back out of that room, the freshman Christian Clark out of Arizona. Can we see the tweet that CJ set up that? Because it looks like, according to the program, he has suffered a torn Achilles tendon. That will end his season. So 2 lower leg injuries for 2 of your 5 scholarship running backs. That takes the number of scholarship players at that position down to 3. And it's starting to get a little dire straits there, CJ Vogel and Rod Babers.
Yeah, it sure is, right? And then this is supposed to be the build-up time, the fun time to be, kind of getting antsy and excited and anticipatory for what's to come in August 31st. But, man, it's tough, right? This is exactly what you don't want to hear, especially for a young kid who's expected to make his debut at the college level, right? I'm sure he was excited as anybody, his family included, to walk out there and to see him trot onto the field at DKR to take on Colorado State and beyond. And to hear that he, will no longer be suiting up for the season due to injury, very unfortunate. But yeah, big picture wise, what does this running back room look like at Texas, right? Yeah, it's been a hot topic, as it should be, right? Texas was expected to have a 2-headed monster this year with C.J. Baxter and Jaden Blue. Well, we know C.J. Baxter will be out for the season. Christian Clark, Jarrett Gibson, those were supposed to be the guys that you would see step up and play into a large role this year. Well, now Christian Clark's out for the season. So it's going to be a 3-headed monster, right? It's going to be Jaden Blue. It's going to be Trey Wisner. It'll be Jarrett Gibson, who we've heard a lot of positives about so far this offseason. Now, the question becomes, what happens if one of those guys goes down? And it's unfortunate to have to talk about, but the running back position is a position that does see injuries more than others, so you have to ask the question. And that's where walk-on Colin Page comes in, and that's where linebacker Darian Gillette comes in. And I'll echo it as well. I have also heard that Ryan Niblett's expected to get some run this evening. They're taking the practice field probably about 30 minutes in to the practice this evening. That was a name that was mentioned to me as someone that was expected to get some looks this evening and later this week at the running back spot. Again, not a big body, but someone that is capable of running the football. He had probably 600, 700 yards rushing over the last season and a half of his high school career. He's often used as a quarterback, so he's used to having the ball in his hands in the backfield, kind of diagnosing looks in front of him from the backfield as well. We know about the speed, and he's also a big threat, in the pass game as well. So they're trying some different things out. Obviously, Darian Gillette, another name that moved into the running back room for the scrimmage on Saturday. We heard he actually impressed quite a bit of the coaches, including Sarkisian himself. So Texas, again, it's a great thing that they recruit a lot of talented football players, a lot of versatile. I hate to make the joke about positionless football players, Rod, but I mean, here we are talking about guys moving from wide receiver, from linebacker. Who knows what else might happen later on? Perhaps Juan Davis or a tight end gets a look too. That's yet to be confirmed on my end, but that's the unfortunate situation in the running back room right now. And luckily, Texas has a great running back coach and head coach to figure this out.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's my level of concern. I had a very kind of optimistic glass half full view of the C.J. Baxter injury. Now with Christian Clark now being off for the season as well, I'll admit my level of concern is much higher. So I just think Sark has to approach this as a kind of a multi-pronged approach to solving this issue with the depth at the running back position. So I think you're right, CJ. First and foremost, you put bodies in the room. I would try to put 2 bodies in the room, whether that be, like you said, Darian Gillette, or whether that be Ryan Niblett, some other players. He implied that he's looking at multiple players on both sides of the ball to switch potentially to the running back position. So I think you do that. That's your number one approach to solving that problem. And I think after that, you got to look at kind of safeguarding the running back position a little bit. If my man CB throw it out there, like protect Jaden Blue at all costs. I don't know how you're going to start doing that in practice in terms of dividing up the reps. But yeah, you got to start protecting Jaden Blue a little bit, protecting Trey Weisner a little bit more. However that works. I mean, you can only do so much. Football is football. We're starting to see injuries at the NFL level in training camp already. Seen them all across college. Can't avoid it at some point when you're just trying to get into football shape. But, you know, if you're Sark at this point, because you've had that injury bug hit so early at one position and not just – you know, not guys getting tapped with the injury bug. You're talking about guys getting knocked out for the season at one position. You do have to be a little, I think, aware of that if you're Sark. And then Sark's got to start thinking about the grand macro element of this, right? How this changes your scheme, your tactics, your strategy as a coach. You know, always, I remember the great quote from one of my DB coaches in the league, Ray Horton, who always say, man, life and football are constant struggles, deciding between what you want to be and what you need to be in order to survive. And what Sark wanted to be this year, because he probably had, CJ Baxter is a big part of that. I'm sure he was thinking about the pony package as a big part of what he was going to break out this year. Obviously some improvements in the red zone probably had to do with, short yardage and some innovative things on the goal line. I mean, you just lost your best inside kind of short yardage back in CJ Baxter. That's going to affect the pony package, which was your most, as you guys have heard me say, most effective, most explosive, most efficient personnel package. So you're not going to have as much of that, at least early on. Who's going to be filling in the roles? That's a short yardage back. And who's your wildcat? I heard people looking at, the chat here, people talking about Savion Red and where he would be now in this running back rotation. So yeah, you're going to miss the red cat. Who's going to be your wildcat guy in that package there at the running back position? So I think a lot changed. I think you're going to be focused on more, single back formation, single back personnel groupings. And then you lose a lot of your versatility as well, because you lose your CJ Baxter, was more of your power guy, more of your in between the tackles, downhill runner. And then you had Jaden Blue, whose elite trait was his speed. So you just lose versatility in that backfield as well. So it's a lot. And I think Sark is up to the task. I think ultimately, if I was doing it, I would just put more on Quinn's plate. That would be my solution. I've been saying it from the jump. After the CJ Baxter injury, I'll double down on it now. Christian Clark injury, that's big too, just because of the depth of the running back position. You got Quinn Ewers, third year in this system. You got the deepest wide receiving core that you've had at Texas since Sark has been here, one of the deepest in all the country. Those are your strengths, and your strengths oftentimes in football determine your identity. And if I'm building the identity of this team, it's not going to be your running back group. Not saying those guys aren't good, but that's not the strength of your offense right now. The strength of your offense is the passing game. And now Sark can actually speak and talk to the quarterback via the headset. So to help him with his pre-snap diagnosis, to me, that helps the passing game. That doesn't help the running game. The running game is not advantaged by Sark being able to talk to the quarterback headset, but the passing game is greatly influenced and benefited from that. So I think you add that to the element. Quinn, third year in the system, wide receivers really deep. I think this is a team that passes to open up the run. Not saying they're going to be pass first from a vertical standpoint, but there is the screen game. And Sark's one of the best screen designers in all of football, period, college or pro. There is the quick game. There is RPO. There's a lot that can be second nature to Quinn, getting the ball out in under 2.5 seconds that will insulate him in pass protection. And it will essentially be an extension of the running game, long handoffs. That's where you got to go. It's time for Sark to be somewhat of an extremist to close the gap, the talent gap you're losing on offense with losing your, two of your top 4 running backs now in that rotation.
Yeah, cluster injuries at any position, not good, especially, Sark has had a 1,000-yard running back at every place he's been as a play caller, as a coordinator or a coach. Is that going to be Jaden Blue? But I agree with CB and Rod. Bubble wrap these guys, green jerseys if you have to, the rest of camp. They've got to be healthy, especially for that second game of the year against Michigan. This says this is a good lead into a next topic. Daniel with the super chat. How good is the preferred walk-on out of the Austin area? That's Colin Page, who you're talking about from Anderson, 17, almost 1,800 yards last year here in the AISD. Anderson High School, not far from where I'm broadcasting right now. Really good player. I mean, he was the bell cow of that offense. They had a great receiver in Smalls, but this is a kid that is turning some heads, and He's a strong running back. CJ, he's 215 pounds, one of the stronger players on the team that's not a lineman. He really can move the pile, and that's really to Rod's point. I mean, you're going to have to lean on the passing game, your good offensive line a little bit more. Same time, you're going to have some short yardage plays at some point during a long football season that could be 15, 16, 17 games if you're playing to your goals. So you're going to have some of those guys. What do we know about Colin Page? Sark actually singled him out, and we know he got some significant run at the scrimmage on Saturday. This could be a kid to watch because we've seen walk-ons, especially walk-ons from right here in Austin, have impact over the last several years.
Yeah, definitely. And, he could be next up. Right. It'll depend, obviously, on how Texas feels about its 3 depth guys at the moment, as well as what does Darian Gillette looks like. Right. They wouldn't move him over there if they didn't see a vision with him at some point in the running back room. Colin Page is a great athlete. You mentioned one of the stronger players on the team, 1,700 rushing yards his senior season at Austin Anderson, scored a touchdown in the scrimmage on Saturday as well, and was in the week leading up to the scrimmage was actually running with the second team offense at times, again, as Texas began to kind of fill in what was the absence and hole left by the injury to CJ Baxter. So he's certainly a guy that's been in the system now for 3 years, could be a guy that takes on a role of his own. We've been wondering, long and hard, who's going to be a short yardage guy, who's going to be a goal line guy. Does Texas bring back the Wildcat? We're looking at guys that have that kind of thicker build, right? That was Savion Red a year ago at 235 pounds. I don't think he got to 240 during the season, but he certainly wasn't, very thin, I would say, at the time. So Colin Page, probably the largest body in that room right now, excluding Darian Gillette. And I don't know right away how much that they will trust Darian Gillette in a package of his own, right? That's one thing to be given a handoff and to say, hit that hole running as hard as you can. And it's another thing to catch the snap, wait for a jet motion to clear or an orbit motion, and then say, okay, now I got to wait a little bit, fake a handoff and play a counter, or I got to pound, the power right away. That's a little bit different for a guy who was mainly a wide receiver in high school, right? Darian Gillette, his junior year, had 1,400 receiving yards. I think people forget that.
Yeah.
He didn't play his senior season again due to a season-ending knee injury. So there's a bit of a learning curve at the college level at the running back spot that is going to take some time with Gillette. Luckily, again, there are bodies in that room, and Colin Page is one of them. And as you mentioned, Aaron, Steve Sarkisian said he's one of the walk-ons right now that's standing out a good bit. If you go back and you watch that spring game, that second half, he stood out quite a bit.
Yeah, 100%. And the one thing we know, all we can glean is what we saw in high school and what we're hearing, Rod. Page is a kid who has been played running back his whole life, and just a physical guy, likes the ball. He had big runs in the AISD last year. But then we know Darian Gillette is just a plus athlete, right? He was a basketball player, as CJ said. He was big time basketball player too. His father's a basketball coach. So just a naturally good athlete. Plus, he's 6'3" and 230 on the score, at least on the roster, 235 right now. Back room, the Longhorns don't really have a running back over 205 that's on scholarship. You need some girth there, some size at that running back room, and that's maybe, if you're looking for positives, the 2 season-ending injuries in a week would be the time you would have. You may not need Darian Gillette till SEC play, but you got a month or so to try to get him as much reps as you can to make sure he's comfortable, because it may just be a couple of snaps, couple of plays in a ball game, but they could be significant plays where you need short yardage or you need a first down kind of thing.
Totally agree. That's why I'm with you. The sooner you make the transition for these guys, the better. And that's why I would, if I'm Sark, I'd probably throw 2 guys. I'd probably move 2 guys instead of just 1. Just because, and I hate to, as a coach, you have to plan for the worst. You don't like thinking about it, but that's all the conversation you have to have with your coaching staff. All right, guys, let's assume the worst case scenario happens. We've already lost 2 running backs for the season. We got 3 scholarship running backs right now in that room. Is that the last injury we're going to have at running back? Anybody can guarantee me that in the next 17 weeks or whatever we got? Anybody want to guarantee me that the last injury we'll have in the backfield was that injury to Christian Clark? Nobody can guarantee. Hell, last year you had Keelan Robinson with a damn cast on his hand returning kicks, all right, because he got hurt. Jay Brooks was out for the season. CJ Baxter got nicked up early. Gave Jonathan Brooks more of a shot. Guys, you had your top 3 running backs in that room got hurt last year. 3 of the top 4. At one point, they're going to get nicked up again. It's just a reality of the position. So as a coach, you got to plan for the worst. You hope and you pray for the best, but you plan for the worst. And planning for the worst means I'd move 2 guys in there. I'd move Darian Gillette in there I love what you're talking about as a power element, somebody maybe that can run in between the tackles. We'll see. Hopefully, Jerry Gibson can do that too. I know I love the armor that he already has on his body as a young player. And honestly, I think about Ryan Niblett. And I think about moving him there. And I know it's got to be a pitch because you don't want to force a young man to change positions. You like him to be invested. You want them to have to be that decision. We're in the player empowerment era. Probably back in my day to be like, dude, you're switching positions. Like you probably were told that. These days, you probably want to ask and make sure the young man's on board with it. So if Ryan Niblett's on board, my pitch would probably be you probably look like you could be one of the Wildcat option for us to contribute. You're probably right now, you're not in the circle of trust of the wide receivers. You're not in that top 6. I don't know. I wouldn't say it the way I'm saying it, but I'm telling you guys the part of the pitch, he's not in the top 6 there. And chances are that I don't know if he's going to penetrate that group unless, knock on wood, there are some injuries. And, for Darian Gillette, I think he's already on board with switching because he understands at linebacker right now, he's probably running 3rd string, somewhere around there, 3rd or 4th string linebacker. And you just want to contribute as a player. You want to get reps. You want to feel like that you're part of the winning formula for the team. And when a coach has a vision for you, it's a really powerful sales pitch. When a coach is like, hey, man, I got a vision. I know how I want to use you. I got a vision for how I want to use you. And we want to execute that vision. And I think you can pitch that to a Darian Gillette right now. You can pitch that to a Ryan Niblett, maybe some other guys. I'd move 2 guys. I'd do it right now because the truth is, I hate to say it, you're going to have another injury at running back. There's no way you're going to go another 3-4 months without another guy getting nicked up, missing a little bit of time, and just in practice alone. If you want to bubble wrap Jaden Blue, then you better move somebody. You better move multiple guys in that running back room right now so that you don't have the burden of all that wear and tear in practice because they still got to practice. So you put him in the blue jersey, but hey, man, the defense got to hit somebody that's running the football. All right, so that's just part of it. So I just think the logistics of it, I'd move 2 guys in there right now. And it's good for them because you don't want to put them in that room when the crisis hits and the fit hits the shan in week 3 or 4 or something happens, and then they got to learn everything on the fly. They're drinking through a fire hose, as Brent Venable said. They're blowing and going. You don't want that, right? You want at least you got a little bit of time here where they can get in the playbook, learn the pass protection, be alignment and assignment sound. A lot of pre-snap stuff with Sark, and that's part of the beauty of his offense. But I guarantee you, for a defensive guy switching to offense and then learning and it's hard enough for a freshman, but learning all those moving parts prior to the snap, that can be a bit of an issue. Pass protection, always an issue. Then the footwork that changes from position and even for different phases of the football. You want to make that transition sooner rather than later so the guys can start working on their craft and cultivating their craft. It's going to take a while to acclimate to that transition. You don't want to be doing that during the season. So in order to insulate yourself from that, do it now. Do it right now.
Do it right now. 100% agree with that. And again, I mean, the Michigan game is week 2, but you've got Colorado State where you're a 35-point favorite in that game. You could get some reps for some of these guys in actual game action and get their feet under them a little bit at that position. Because you said are exactly right, Rod. I mean, you got to prepare for the worst now. You can't get middle of the season and say, oh man, I wish we had done that. Because right now we're really up against the wall here. You mentioned a name, CJ, before we switch some topics here. We'll take some thoughts on the running back room. You said Juan Davis, and this is, I know Rod's been talking about the pony package. I mean, in my mind, you're thinking, he's a tight end, but could he be an H-back that, kind of serves that role potentially where CJ Baxter was. So you still can use Jaden Blue to hunt some matchups. And I know he played some running back in high school. That's a name I think is interesting, Juan Davis, because we know he's a good blocker and a pass receiver if he's playing the tight end position and running number 2 on the depth chart.
Yeah, that would be interesting, right? What kind of role could you use him in that doesn't, kind of give away your game plan or the scheme or the play call? Right. He's a guy who was a high school quarterback at the time. So at Everman, he was always with the ball in his hand. And, at times they needed a big play. And so what did they do? They said, hey, we need a kid that can throw the ball the furthest. Juan, go line up out wide and we're hucking it to you. And that's kind of where their offense came from. But as a result of him being the quarterback, you could see the idea of him running the football. Right, Matthew, I put up a quick one clip highlight of Juan Davis in high school on my Twitter earlier today, just running between the tackles. And Juan Davis at the time, 6'3", probably 220 pounds. He's up to about 235, 240 at the moment. He's been a guy that Jeff Banks singled out as being a super physical guy at the line of scrimmage, despite maybe not having that, kind of tight end mold of a body that you would see with a Gunnar Helm or a Jatavian Sanders a year ago, right? Here's the play I'm talking about. And tell me you can't envision some sort of short yardage between the tackles. He gets contacted right there at the 45. Let's see where he goes down. I know this isn't the SEC defenders, but to drag that many bodies 25 yards is pretty impressive. And I know that he's gotten stronger. I know that he's gotten faster. So I think that there's an opportunity there. If Sark really does want to get creative, hey, let's go 3 tight end personnel on the field. But instead, one of those tight ends is lined up in the backfield with a Jaden Blue or a Trey Wisner or Jarrett Gibson now. I think that could work in short distances, but we'll see what they ought to do. Again, it sounds like, and Juan Davis, to his credit, has become more and more of a factor this offseason, dating back to the spring and now into fall camp. We've heard his name more so than we ever have during his time at Texas. And so if that role is looking to increase, or if he's looking to add something to his bag in which he could provide to the Texas Longhorns, this is something I would be a fan of looking at, right? Just finding creative ways. The other conversation I wanted to have before we move off of this is, we talked about the 2019, kind of similarities in which Texas desperately needed bodies, right? It was, I believe at the time it was Keontae Ingram, and I don't know if it was Trey Watson or Roschon Johnson, but those were the 2 backs in which you looked at and said, all right, every carry for the season, it's got to come down to you 2. The one thing that team had that Texas right now does not have is they had a quarterback, Sam Ehlinger, that ran the ball 160 times, actually led the team. So when you talk about a 2-headed running back monster that kind of alleviated some of the issues in that run game, Texas doesn't have that right now, nor should they, right? That's not what Quinn Ewers' strengths are. His strengths are sitting back in the pocket and delivering the ball out to his playmakers out wide. And so to think that they could get away with it, or that the similarities is there right now, Texas is still going to look to run the football 50% of the time, right? I just looked at it right now. 51.2% of their attempts a year ago were rush attempts. That's Sarkisian's MO. He said, we're going to be a balanced football team. So I don't think you can compare the two right away, knowing that the most carries and rush attempts on your football team were taken away by the quarterback in 2019 versus, again, I would be very surprised to see any designed runs this year with Quinn Ewers without maybe a goal line naked bootleg or a read option in which he made the late decision to pull. That's just not Quinn's game, and it hasn't ever really been. So I don't see the comparison all that much. Those creative snaps to get the balls out of the running back's hands to find new ways to continue to run the football, that's where you're going to have to find some solutions. And that's why I think Juan Davis is one that you could point to and say, yeah, we can run the ball off the left tackle or in between the B gap right there and get 6, 5, 4 yards or whatever. Who knows? But because of that, then you lighten the load for Jaden Blue, Trey Wisner, and Jarrett Gibson to last those 16 games. So we'll see how creative they get. But that's just kind of where my brain's gone over the last 48 hours since this injury's kind of popped up, and we've had to sit around and find solutions.
Yep.
Well, you always say it, Rod. Coaches are problem solvers. You got a problem now. Now you got to solve it. And if it's Juan Davis, and again, this isn't, you're not going to take away from your base offense and what you need to be, but you can add packages, you can add creative wrinkles with your best athletes, and that's just what the job is for Tashard Choice. Jeff Banks, Steve Sarkisian come up with some solutions here. And there are, of the first 5 games, there are 4 of them where you could work on a lot of these things to be primed and ready for the Southeastern Conference. Before we pick up that conversation with you, Rod, because I want your thoughts on it, can you tell our audience about one of our great partners tonight on the On Texas Football Tuesday live chat? Longhorns are 18 days out to the opener with Colorado State. Tell them about Hargrave.
Yes, our friends at Hargrove Roofing, really excited they're part of the On Texas Football family. Hargrove Roofing, know who's on your roof, and also got to give a shout out to my man Stevie Lee, because Stevie Lee comes on the winning drive here on Texas Football every Monday. We get Stevie Lee around 3:30, and that's courtesy of our good friends at Hargrove Roofing, with offices all over Louisiana, Arkansas, and of course the great state of Texas, including Austin, Texas. Hargrove Roofing will take care of all of your roofing needs, plus they're Longhorn friendly, ladies and and gentlemen, with partners like lifetime Longhorn Bert Auburn and, of course, lifetime Longhorn Stevie Lee, as I mentioned. They are the most pro burnt orange roofing company out there. You can call them today for a consultation. You can see the number right there, 512-645-3202. That's our friends at Hardgrove Roofing. Really excited about having them as a part of the On Texas football family. Hardgrove Roofing, know who's on your roof. That's Hardgrove Roofing. So give them a call or go check them out online at hardgroveroofing.com. That's hardgroveroofing.com.
All right, Rod, what do you think, Juan Davis? Is that too dramatic if you're going to take a tight end, potentially H-back kind of thing that's played some with the ball in his hands in his career? Is that an option, or is it everything's on the table right now for discussion, at least with the Texas coaching staff?
Yeah, I like that idea. I do like the Juan Davis idea because he's at least received a snap in that situation. We don't talk enough about it, but ball security, talking about all these experiments, and throwing different guys in from different positions. Ball security is going to be a big part of this. And we even talked about this after the scrimmage, the young players, the young running backs, that's something they struggled with in the scrimmage was ball security. Something we saw even some of the vets struggled with in the Sugar Bowl against Washington, ball security. So that's something I think also that you have to keep in mind. Who can just take the most basic part of the play, which is receive a snap if you're talking about the Wildcat? Well, Juan Davis has done it and can do it, and there's a comfort level there. And he's an offensive player already, so you probably know your pass protection and stuff like that. So expanding his role into Wildcat, I think that would be, a compelling idea. You don't know what's going to work, but you need variety in the offense because you're going to lose some variety with not having CJ Baxter part of there. I think you're going to lose. I think the pony package may become somewhat scarce for you if you're Sark. I think, the Wildcat package, right? That's some of your variety. I don't know if you're going to have that if you don't have someone that's willing to fill that role. So you lose some of the variety, and I think you got to boost that in other areas. I think Sark would break out. I still think he should break out that 10 personnel package, the red package he had at Alabama with 4 wide receivers on the field, 1 back, 0 tight ends at times. And just to hunt matchups, right? To add more variety to the offense when you're going to lose some of it. What you're trying to do if you're Sark at this point is you need to become an extremist about some of the some of your disproportionately successful concepts and successful plays and ideas. And I'll just give you an example, right? In the Sugar Bowl, Washington couldn't stop the empty formation. They couldn't stop the pony package. They couldn't. Texas ran right over them with the pony package. It's like they didn't prepare for it or something. I don't know. Texas averaged almost 10 yards per play in it, and yet 7 plays on one drive and only 2 plays for the rest of the game. That's 7 plays on the second drive of the game, the first scoring drive. And yet Sark, because he preaches moderation and balance, and that's part of his DNA as a play caller, he's not going to deviate and go, you know what? They can't stop the pony package. Let's shove it down their damn throat till they choke on it and see if they can stop it. And when they stop it, then we'll adjust to it. He won't do that. I would say Sark doesn't even like leftovers because he don't play the hits, right? He wants to keep it fresh, keep it new, innovation and creativity. He's got it. He's a brilliant offensive mind. But there's sometimes where I think, you know what? If they can't stop this one concept and they haven't stopped it, run it again on them. Run it 4, 5 times and see if they can stop it. And if they don't come up with a solution for it, antidote for it, shove it down their throat. They'll choke on it and they'll die. Right, as a defense, hopefully they won't, because they'll just. But that's Sark. Sark's a moderate. If we were talking about politics, he's a moderate. He's not an extremist. He's not at all. And Sark and my man Cedar just gave you the numbers on it, right? Because he wants that kind of balance. I think you got to get away from that a little bit this season. I think he needs to become an extremist in certain areas. Find out the pockets of potency. It's my man Matt Butler, because I found the pockets of potency where you have disproportionately higher success rate, explosive play rates in different areas. Like I mentioned, like the pony package. You can't do that this year, but empty formation is one of those. Your 6-0 line package, your Big 11, Big 12, when you bring on Malik Ogbo, oh man, your yards per attempt, probably the highest of any personnel grouping out of that. Why? Because you basically got a 6th offensive lineman in there, and that's pass protection. So they have longer developing routes on those plays, and that's when Sark wants to get downfield vertical. So he puts in an added insulated layer of pass protection, and you can do that, right? I think that's somewhere you can go. Like I said, the 10 personnel package, you're going to have to get creative, and you're going to become somewhat of an extremist and stubborn about some of the ideas, because you got to close the talent gap now. You lost some of your talent advantage. right? How are you going to close that gap? Well, you close that gap schematically, tactically, and strategically. And I think that's where Sark, who can do it, I think that's where this year he's going to have to prove himself as a chess master.
Yeah, with a third-year starter at quarterback, as you said, with the helmet communication, with a great array of receivers that can win one-on-ones, and an emerging tight end, and one of the better offensive lines in the SEC. There are fixes and problems to solve. There are answers to the quiz, I think, and I think Rod gave you a bunch of them right there. Good stuff from RB. CJ, let me ask you this. One thing that when we look at the SEC and you see the AP poll come out, you saw where Bill Connolly dropped a new SP+. Longhorns are 5th in that SP+. The one thing that stands out about the SEC, and you and I were up at SEC Media Days covering, when you look at the 9 teams that are ranked in the AP Top 25 that came out on Tuesday, 9 teams in there, which is incredible out of the SEC. 8 of the 9 teams are led by quarterbacks who are at least in their 3rd year starting. Some of them in their 4th year. I was looking at the ages of these quarterbacks that are in the SEC right now. It's pretty incredible. I mean, this is one of the storylines of the conference. I mean, Carson Beck's in his 5th year. He's 22 years old this fall. Jalen Milrose in his 4th year. Jackson. He's going to be 23 in the fall. Garrett Nussmeier, who's played at his turn at LSU, he's 4th year. He's 22. Graham Mertz in his 5th year. He's 23. Quinn Ewers in his 3rd. The only young quarterback, quite honestly, is of a ranked team is Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma. He hadn't started any game. They're 16th in that tough schedule. I think that's that's going to make this conference very compelling. And the Longhorns have one of those returning veteran quarterback. This is a very old quarterback conference, which usually leads to some pretty good football in my mind.
Yeah, you see it right away in the top 6, right? Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe at Alabama, Texas has Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck at Georgia. Doesn't get much better than that. And, of course, Ohio State and Oregon, of course, with Dylan Gabriel and Will Howard, 2 names that Texas fans are familiar with as well. That's the precursor right now for a team that is expected to compete for a national championship, is an expected veteran, a quarterback that's been around the block a few times, if you will. In the SEC, you're definitely going to see it. Fortunately for Texas, you don't see it as much, right? You can go from the very beginning of the Texas football schedule in the SEC to the end. And the question is, kind of that inexperience at quarterback, right? Blake Shapen, you start with Mississippi State. Yeah, he's played some football, but he hasn't played recently, right? Didn't play a whole lot a year ago. Oklahoma, Jackson Dart, 1 start. We saw how that is. We've seen the practice reports out of Norman. He turns the ball over a lot. That's kind of his personality and identity at the moment. You do that in the SEC, you're going to lose ball games. Obviously, you got Georgia. But then you go play Graham Mertz, a lot of experience, probably the most experience of any quarterback in the SEC at the moment. Taylon Green, Arkansas. I mean, some guys who have played football before, maybe first time in the system. Connor Wegman to wrap things up. Another guy in which you look at and you say, yeah, he's played ball, but hasn't been a whole lot recently. Only 8 career starts, I believe, in 2 years of being a quarterback at Texas A&M. So the big thing for Texas here, and again, looking at the schedule, is, they match up well with all the top dogs that they play this year. Michigan, brand new quarterback, brand new offensive line, brand new head coach, brand new everything, right? Except maybe that personality in which Michigan plays football, and that's, pound and ground. Oklahoma, we just mentioned it, brand new offensive line, brand new quarterback. You're going to have some growing pains there. Brand new offensive coordinator. People forget that. That was one of the reasons why a year ago going into Tuscaloosa, it wasn't unheard of to have people say, yeah, I feel really confident about Texas. Why? Well, there's a lot of newness, right? Texas beat Alabama pretty badly a year ago. Thank you, Matthew. Here's the career starts for the SEC quarterbacks. But finishing up on that point about Alabama, Texas ended up winning that game so, I guess, convincingly towards the end that all of Tuscaloosa and even the coaching staff at Alabama started pondering whether or not Jalen Milroe is going to be our quarterback for week 3. And he wasn't, right? They played USF in a game that was disgustingly just downpoured on due to rain. And I believe the final of that was about 17-7. It was a disgusting game. Alabama, I believe, was only up 3-0 at halftime. And then they kind of pulled away a little bit towards the end, but very bad game. And then they said, oh, wait, our quarterback's not bad. Let's put Jalen Milroe back in there, and they made it to the college football playoff. That's what Texas is going to need to do without their true kind of plethora of running backs that we've talked about earlier today. So of this group that's up there right now, right, Texas plays Florida, But we know how tough Florida's going to have it. Their schedule. They don't play Peyton Thorne. They don't play Brady Cook. They don't play Jackson Dart. But then they play Diego Pavia. They play Blake Shapen. Again, they played a lot of snaps, played a lot of football, but none of those snaps were at their current school. So brand new systems, brand new familiarity that they're going to have to get associated with the offensive line, the tight end, the running backs, the receivers. Very much the same with Taylor Green. So Carson Beck, Graham Mertz, the two guys that have that continuity of the same school that Texas will have to play this year, I would say this is very favorable. And then you start to talk about a little bit more some of those new head coaches that Texas will have to play as well that kind of line up with these guys as well. It works out very favorably right now for the Longhorns offensively with Ewers, Sarkisian, and that offensive line all coming back again this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's, again, the favorable part of the Longhorn schedule. I mean, it's amazing that the AP Top 25 is out, and, Florida's going to play 8 teams this year ranked in that top 25, which is crazy. 5 of them are top 15. Oklahoma's going to play 6 in the top 15. Texas, just a couple. And as you just said, CJ, documenting the quarterbacks that they're going to face. Carson Beck, easily the best as far as that goes, but some inexperience in there. And Rod, back on Sark and the scrimmage on Saturday, the press conference on Monday, talking about the intentionality they're taking with forcing turnovers and trying to be aggressive with the defense. What's good for the defense is bad for the offense. But Sark has said, he said the Monday practice that they had coming off the scrimmage was maybe the most spirited they've had since he's been the coach at Texas. That, those guys were getting after it. The offense was kind of humbled a little bit on Saturday. The defense is still coming after it and forcing the ball onto the ground and making interceptions. You got to like hearing that from the defensive side of the ball, that aggressiveness and going and getting the football.
Yeah, I think, it was pretty obvious from the reports from the scrimmage that the defense won the scrimmage. And I think the emphasis on havoc, right? It's on havoc. Essentially, havoc plays are splash plays by the defense, interceptions, PBUs, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, sacks, tackles for loss. And there should just be an emphasis on getting more of those. This is what Sark, was talking about last season when he kept reiterating complementary football. Complementary football, especially last season when you're up 3 scores, when you're up 20, 21 points on an opponent, and they have to abandon the run. Not only abandon the run, they take it out in the backyard and shoot it and bury it. They're done with the running game. And yet you still, when they're one-dimensional and down, double digits and down 2 and 3 scores, and you know exactly what they're going to do, meaning they're going to throw the football, you still can't force those negative plays. You still can't get those havoc plays. That was a problem last year. And I think that's something that they wanted to rectify this offseason. And they wanted to do it by having, first of all, more havoc-minded players. And I think they do. The most havoc-minded players they have now are probably Anthony Hill and Jahdae Barron, Ethan Burks in that category. I think Trey Moore, of course, is in that category as well. I think you got some other guys. Makuba could be in there too. But you need more of those guys on the field. And the guys, there's a difference. Listen, I was a good player at Texas. But I was not a havoc-minded player. I got a lot of PBUs, so I dropped a lot of interceptions. So I'm top 5 there, but not because I was havoc-minded. I was a technician, and I played the man more often than I played the ball. The man took me to the ball. There are some guys, the man does not take them to the ball. They think ball. They're all about the ball. They're ball hawks. That's the way they were programmed early on as football players and developed, and they think ball. They believe they have a right to the football. And even when they're going in to tackle guys, they're attacking the football. I never attacked the football when I was going in for a hit. I don't know how many forced fumbles I had, but I probably had 1, maybe 2 in my entire career at Texas because I was not going in that way. Derek Johnson did. Derek Johnson went in hacking at the football. Literally, when he's making the tackle, one arm securing the tackle, other arm hacking at the football. Jahdae Barron, you saw it in some of the highlights, came in, and the way that he came in to hit, he was hitting the football. Some guys, Anthony Hill's like that. Some guys think ball. And I think there are other guys. I always describe them, you're the technician, you're a ball hawk, right? Or you're a disruptor on defense. And you can be a good player or being just one or the other or being multiple. It doesn't matter. There's a place for you. But I think you have to go recruit, and you have to, if you're as a coach, intentionally put ball hawks on the field. They're a different breed. I played with them. They're not like everybody else. They're not technicians and disruptors like everybody else. They're a certain breed. And I think Malik Muhammad's got that in them. And I think ultimately the coaches have figured out we got to recruit what we can't coach. And that's why some of your better ball hawks are now some of the younger guys. Anthony Hill's in that category. I think Ethan Burke's in that category as a ball hawk. I think Malik Muhammad's in that category. I think Makuba's going to be brought in a Trey Moore. These are havoc-minded players that are going to execute some of those splash plays you need on defense. And that's why, look at the scrimmage, right? What Trey Moore forced a fumble. Janae Barron forced a fumble. Anthony Hill was getting sacks, right? Who got intercepted? Makuba got an interception. These are havoc-minded players. Coaches figured out, I can't develop the havoc. I can't develop those guys. There are certain things you can't develop, coach. You can't coach speed. I know you think you're awesome and you pay a lot of money and you're really good at your job, but you can't do what God does. And only God can coach speed. God, the one that gave you coverage skills. I always say that's something that you can't coach. You got to recruit coverage responsibility and coverage specialists. I don't think you can recruit. I don't think you really can coach ball hawks. I think you got to recruit that. I think certain guys are born with that ability, and it's kind of innate in their skill set. And they think ball and they go after ball. You have more of those players on your defense now, and I think that's intentional.
Good stuff, Rod. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, would it be great to have it all in one place that protects all of it? Rod's talking about good hands. Well, Saunders, Mark Saunders, as we said, 35 years. Agent Mark Saunders, the only insurance you're going to need. Everything. Your home, your car, boats, motorcycles, RVs, ATVs, everything in good hands. You sleep well at night knowing that with Mark. He's the best. Mark Saunders' office to call tomorrow, 512-218-8571. That's 512-218-8571. So ask yourself again before. Put your head on that pillow tonight. 18 sleeps ahead of the Texas opener. Are you in good hands? More than 35 years of experience you will be with Mark Saunders, 512-218-8571. That is a great partner of ours on Tuesday nights. We appreciate it. With Allstate, you are in good hands. Thoughts, CJ, on Rod and what we heard from Sark? I thought that was interesting that he thought Monday's practice was one of the best they've had since he's been here. A lot of trash talk. They were getting after it, which is what you want, right? I mean, what'd you take from Sark's Zoom on Monday? And I know we're going to hear from a couple of players tonight after practice, but feels like it's getting a little chippy as we count down the days.
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, JW Horn, appreciate you very much for the super chat. That's big time. Thank you for checking out the show, and we appreciate the comment as well. But Aaron, to your question about Sarkisian's press conference, this was, of course, prior to us knowing anything about Christian Clark's injury. And so to leave that availability and to hear what Sarkisian had to say, at first it was great, right? You come off of a scrimmage, and Rod, you can attest to this, right? You're entering kind of those dog days of fall camp, right? You don't have the first scrimmage to look at to kind of get you through the week and to get you excited. You're not yet at Colorado State prep, so you're not game planning for anybody. This is all about, can I get myself through another week of fall camp to get closer to the season? And for Sarkisian to come up and say, oh, we actually had some great mental intensity. Our boys were still locked in. They were, coming out ready to focus. They were coming out ready to play. That was great. I love that. He mentioned the leadership committee and the guys on campus right now who are leading the team from inside the locker room as something that I took away and said, yep, that's what I wanted to hear. So that was all great until, of course, you step outside after the Zoom call and you make a call or two and you say, oh boy, not great now, right? But to hear that the rest of the team is completely focused and bought in, I thought it was great. And that's exactly what I would want to hear about this team coming in to the 2024 season, where there are going to be some new tests, some new obstacles, some new hurdles that otherwise I'm not sure they would have been prepared for in years past. But that last year in 2023 got them mentally focused on what it takes to come into a season prepared with goals that they want to achieve. And they did just that last year, hoping that they do so again this year, because it's certainly sounding like they're checking the boxes in the preseason.
Yep. And I think there's something else that happens when you lose key players on your team, when you lose great leadership on your team. And from what Sark, talked about with CJ Baxter, he was a great teammate. In addition to being a great player, you lose a young guy like Christian Clark. There is I don't know when the Christian Clark injury took place in terms of practice, but there is a galvanizing effect to it, where, hey, man, everybody must up their game. We just lost one of our brothers. Everybody's got to up their game. Everybody's got to be more intense. Everybody's got to crystallize their focus. Everybody must try to, Coach Achilles used to always say, strive for the perfect rep. Can you get the perfect rep? How many perfect reps did you have today? Any perfect reps? You want to strive for the perfect rep every time. I think that's probably, like I said, I don't know when this injury happened, but you knew you had the Cedric Baxter injury already. So I don't know when the Christian Clark injury happened, but I just think you're getting guys that understand the assignment and they can read the room. Everybody's got to step their game up because the guys who are leaders on this team, they understand what's happening. I mean, they understand the loss and the impact of losing CJ Baxter, what's happening in the running back room. It's going to have a domino effect on the team, the scheme, the strategy, the tactics. And that means everybody's got to be a little bit better. I think one of the things that's going to help Texas is if that defense is indeed much improved in those havoc plays, and you can count on the defense to give you better field position now, forcing more 3-and-outs, giving you the ball more by forcing turnovers, being more opportunistic, all those things. That's that complementary football that helps. Your coverage unit should be superb this year. Now, I know you're probably going to lose some of your gunners. I think a couple of running backs might have been guys who were going to be your gunners. Got to figure that out. But you mean figuring out fast guys on this team? It's the fastest team that Sark's ever had. Shouldn't be a big issue to go find 2 more fast guys to go play the gunners. So your coverage unit should be great. Your return units between Matthew Golden and Silas Bolden, those should also be some of the best in the country. Bert Auburn, hopefully, I'll say this, and I love Bert Auburn. I don't want him to be an All-American, but he's one of the best kickers in the country. If he's an All-American, that means your red zone issues are probably still an issue. So you don't want that, but I want him to have a great year, and he's going to have a great year. He's one of the best kickers in the country. He's a preseason All-American in some people's eyes. And then you go look at maybe a punter, maybe a question, but your special teams, your defense, and obviously your offense, for the reasons we talked about, mostly because the veteran returning at quarterback, the veterans returning on the offensive line, that should be a strength for you too. So I know we're talking about the negative aspect and the glass half empty aspect of the depth in the running back room, and I get that. The truth is, complementary wise, in terms of the entire all 3 phases contributing to winning, this should be one of your better groups in terms of the complementary element of it. I am a little bit worried though about red zone, goal line, short yardage situations, because I know Cedric Baxter was a big part of that. I mean, Cedric Baxter, how many touchdowns did he have last year, CJ? Like 5 touchdowns, somewhere around there? Yeah. Most of them were in the red zone, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say, they were literally, he was one of your best red zone weapons, is my point. And you lost that, and you were one of the worst red zone offenses in the country last year. I'm sure he was a part of your solution to your red zone issues. That's something Sark's got to now circle back to. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a test for Sark. Coaches are problem solvers. You got a lot of problems you got to solve right now.
A lot of good players, and Sark has talked about being 44 deep, 2 deep on each side of the ball, and then beyond that, it's going to take 50, 60 good players to win at the level Texas wants to this year. Blake with a nice super chat. If any good comes out of this, opponents can't scout or scheme against the run because they don't know who's going to be running with certain packages. That's an optimistic look as well. Sure. No doubt about it. Thank you, Blake. Appreciate that very, very much.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to kind of rethink that. But look, and again, Jaden Blue's got to be protected. He's a guy that could be that 1,000-yard back. But to your point, Rod, right there, complimentary football. I mentioned the Bill Connolly SP Plus that's out. Connolly has Texas, their SP Plus for offense is number 4 in the country. Defense, it's like 17. Special teams, it's 12. If you're Sark, I mean, you have those numbers too, or you're crunching your own. If we're going to win a championship or play for one, you got to get the defense into the top 10. You got to get the special teams playing at a top 10 level. Our offense is going to be fine. We're going to score points. We need to be, creating havoc on defense. And with the talent we have, as you said, you got to be playing higher than 17 on defense. You do that, this is a team that can be really, really good. Let me ask you about the linebackers, Rod, because on that side of the ball, one of the guys you mentioned, CJ Baxter, and Sark saying that one of the best teammates took a vote of our locker room. Other guy he mentioned, and that was Leonga Lafau, who, one of the reasons Darian Gillette is getting some reps at running back is they've got a deep linebacker room. It's one of the keys for me for the defense to step forward and, play itself like a top 10 defense in the conference potentially. Anthony Hill's on the Butkus Award watch list as of today. David Benda, Leonga Lafau. What's your thought on this linebacker group that is, Darian Gillette, who's a really talented player, can't get on the field right now?
I love the versatility in that room. Sark's talked about it. I thought at first it might be a challenge to try to figure out, based on the matchups week to week, what linebacker you wanted out there. Mo Blackwell's your hybrid linebacker. We talk about Leon Lafau. I know CJ's a big fan of him, and I got a stat about Leon Lafau that's pretty cool that I'll get into in just a second. But you got him, and then, of course, you got the old vet there, and David Bender, who's your, fifth-year senior, sixth-year senior. He's been around there forever, and he's the guy I think that's earned the trust of the coaches and dependable against the run. I think he could be exposed against the pass a little bit, but I'm sure now he's probably a little bit more savvy in pass defense as a linebacker. So I like his. Anthony Hill's just going to be a star. I mean, that he's got a chance to be an all-SEC caliber linebacker. I mean, we're talking about first-team SEC. I mean, he's that good. I don't know if he's going to be next year, but at one point before he goes to the NFL. So I just like and Leon Lafau, I love his skill set overall. Here's the stat. Got it from Hookem. Headline said Lafau led Texas special teams in 2023 with 8 total tackles with the coverage unit. And so look. I mean, so especially they love on this team when you earn your way on special teams. The coaches do. They got a lot of respect for that. Jeff Banks and company. And Leon Lafau could be one of those players that ends up having a breakout year, because I don't necessarily think, and I think Benda is the leader right now. I don't think they've really cemented and solidified who they want to be consistently the linebacker opposite Anthony Hill. Anthony Hill's going to be out there all the time, but I'm not sure that they know, it's going to be Benda, 80% of the snaps opposite Anthony Hill or Mo Blackwell or Leon Lafau. I think they're going to really let the season determine who separates and who ascends at that spot for him. And I think it could be any one of those guys. I like Leon Lafau though, and I know you do too, CJ. You've been a big fan of his. I think you've been preaching his preaching about his skill set and really just how overall he's ready to take that next step. I think probably for the entire offseason.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big fan of Lafau. He plays very well in space, meaning he reads quarterbacks. Texas football actually tweeted out a video kind of highlighting some of the scrimmage plays. And what do you see in there? Well, you see Lafau batting down a pass over the middle. So that's exactly what I want to see, because that then allows Anthony Hill to be freed up to do exactly what Anthony Hill does. And Rod, you put it best, to create havoc. So that's why the pairing of Jalen Ford and Anthony Hill worked so well a year ago. It's because, if you line up 2 backers in the middle of the field like you normally do, you can bring Anthony Hill up and blitz the quarterback and get after the guy, because you have the trust in Jalen Ford to sit there, roam the middle, and protect that area in the passing game as well. So that'll be interesting to see how David Benda and Anthony Hill play together. I think they have similar skill sets. The fact that they are both better coming downhill, right? Getting after the run, blitzing the quarterback. Lafau, on the other hand, I think is a bit better in space. One other thing about this sheet that our great producer Matthew has up right now, Darian Gillette, 235. That surprises me a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I was not expecting him to be up that north in the weight department. So, again, talking about what could be a possible running back solution. There you go at 6'1", probably 6'2", 235 pounds. Pretty big body right there. David Benda and Anthony Hill are both listed at 240 plus on the spring schedule. So to see them drop down a little bit, encouraging. Also, Anthony Smith, worth mentioning him at some point in this linebacking conversation. He's going to play this year. We've heard his name far too often for him to not play. They nicknamed him Hurricane already. You can probably come to a conclusion as to why that is on your own. It won't take too much context clues there, but to jump from 197 to 220, very impressive for the young linebacker. He's going to find the field at some point this season, and it would not surprise me to see him periodically and often throughout the 2024 season.
Yeah, that's a name coming out of the scrimmage I heard a lot of just all over the field. And that's a guy as a freshman can immediately help on special teams and make plays in that regard. Is just a ball hawk player. This segment brought to you by Autograph, the app that curates the best content, tickets, and gear to help you your full fan potential. That's what you want, right? Being a fan is a full-time job, especially with the season the Longhorns moving to the SEC. So Autograph does the heavy lifting for you, from tickets for all the big matchups and breaking news. Autograph app also has curated content for fans of the Longhorns in Texas. All the podcasts, the articles, game predictions you would ever want, including on Texas football shows. The replay feature lets you get the day's news without the noise, because you just want Longhorn coverage, and that's what they deliver once you sign up and get going. The new replay feature is tremendous, so check it out. All you have to do to get signed up and have your own account there. You start your day with On Texas to download it. It's free for the Apple Play, free for the Apple App Store to get that going. It's the Autograph app. The Autograph app, feed your fandom. Use the code On Texas. There you go. Autograph. This thing puts everything right in one app, but there's your fandom in an app. It's pretty darn cool, including all of your favorite On Texas football shows. That's a really cool piece of technology. Use that promo code On Texas at the Autograph app. I think there was a chat or a question. UT boy, we got to keep swinging. Roderick. Got to keep swinging, Rod.
Hey, well, I mean, I think basically if you're Texas, you're already getting injuries this early on. I think when you're talking about swinging, you're leaning on your strengths. So I don't know if I'm interpreting what you're saying there, UT boy. Obviously, keep fighting, but I think you start leaning on your strengths now. And like I said, life in football, constant struggles deciding between what you want to be and what you need to be. And what Sark wants to be is the real balanced football team. 52% run, 48% pass, but I don't know if that's the way real life is going to work for them this year. I think your strength is going to be the passing game. You make teams fear how lethal your passing game is, because it can be, and they will invite you to run the football. They will give you the light box and say, please hand the football off and stop throwing the football to all of your really dynamic, explosive receivers on the outside. You become proficient enough there. And by the way, honestly, you might get that anyway. Think about it. If I'm going up against Texas, I just heard you lost your starting running back and you lost one of your backup running backs for the season. Why the hell would I stack the box against Texas? Why? First of all, these running backs got to prove it to me. They got to prove it to me. I'm not going to stack the box against you. And when CJ Baxter was there and you had a loaded backfield, okay, you know what? You go out there early with some power sets, I'll stack the box. But right now, Texas might have to prove it to me, especially against Michigan. That's why I love now having that Michigan game, second game of the season, because if you can run against Michigan, you can run against anybody, pretty much. That's just the reality. That's how good Michigan's defense is. They got the best D-tackle duo in all of college football. Wink Martindale is a NFL defensive coordinator. They got 7-8 NFL guys on that defense. You can run against Michigan on the road because running game is supposed to travel. Then Texas running game is legit. And then all this talking and complaining and hypothesizing won't even matter. But will you be able to run the ball against Michigan? And I think you're going to have to be creative to do so. You ain't going to be able to just line up and run downhill against Michigan, a team that's built to play hardball type football. No, you're going to get creative to run the ball against Michigan. And that's what I can't wait to see Sark do.
I saw another question there from Jeff. With all the new rules, can we make a trade for a running back? Trade in cash. Love you guys. Hey, man, player to be named later or something. But can you trade a scholarship? Trade some scholarship and some NIL dollars to get you a running back.
Maybe one day.
A lot of new rules.
I love that comment, right? Maybe one day, as you said, Rod. I have, on a serious note, I have seen some comments about the portal. That window is beyond us. So what you got is what you got on the roster right now, and that's who you're rolling into the season with.
Yeah, if you're just tuning in, they're tuned in late. Our first the 20 minutes was dedicated to the injury. Another running back injury going down. The kid from Arizona, down for the season with an Achilles tendon. Christian Clark is out. That's now two scholarship running backs down. That means 3 scholarship running backs in. That would be Jaden Blue. That would be Trey Wisner. And that would be Jarrett Gibson from the IMG Academy. Now you got to get creative, solve the problem. We've talked about Darian Gillette, and we just saw it. He's up to 235 pounds, an elite athlete coming out of high school, played a lot of sports, played wide receiver. He certainly has the talent to give you some opportunities there. Plus Colin Page, the local product from Austin Anderson High School, is a guy to watch for here. And so we'll see what they do. Juan Davis, you mentioned, CJ. They still have 18 days and a couple of weeks of training camp to try to sort some things out and have the right guys in that room. But to Rod, to summarize, you say do it now. Don't wait. You only have 3 scholarship backs. You're going to have to fill up that room with maybe 2 or 3 more, including Ryan Niblett. You got to do it now and not wait for the next injury. Yeah,
I just think, I hate to be pessimist because it sounds like I'm being a pessimist, but I'm not. I'm just trying to think like the coaches would, and all the coaches that I know, they consider themselves to be realists, but oftentimes they can be pessimists because they have to plan for the worst. You have to plan for the worst, and the worst case scenario would be you get more injuries at the running back position. Seasons, 3-4 months, all right, from the end of the season, and you're gonna have a couple of more nicks there. So I would move it. I think it's best for those guys too, whoever you're moving. to get acclimated, learn potentially pass protections if you need to learn that. There's footwork. A lot of people don't understand the footwork changes dramatically depending on changing positions. There's also alignment assignment issues because Sark has a lot of pre-snap motions and shifts, which we all love, which give him a huge advantage, but can be really, that can be challenging. Learning a new system with all the moving parts that Sark has. So I think the sooner you can do that, the better. Give these guys some time to learn the position, some time to get acclimated to it before they have to worry about the season and game planning on top of learning a new position. And like I said, I anticipate there being more injuries. I mean, you look at last year, CJ Baxter kept getting nicked up because he was a freshman, which happens to freshmen, right? Because they don't have that armor on. They still got their teenage boy bodies. So they ain't got their grown man bodies yet. So they get nicked up a little bit. More of it's probably more pain tolerance or probably hurt more than they are injured, but it's still the reality of it. And then Jonathan Brooks went down last year. Keelan Robinson was returning. He was returning kicks in the bowl game. What was that, the bowl game or the Big Shot game with a cast on his hand? I mean, that's where I think, you could be. That was your three or your four top running backs last season. That could be the same. I mean, we're already halfway there, but that could be the case again this year during the season. You don't want to have to, during a crisis situation where you lose another player at that position, then have to switch guys over, and then you're almost in panic mode. You want to avoid that. Anticipate the worst, hope and pray for the best. We all do.
All right, and CJ, bottom of the hour, in about 10 minutes, there's going to be some players available. Not sure who after a evening practice, as Sark is kind of moving the practice schedules kind of around to different spots. But this one, they're, as you said, they were practicing right through our show here this evening on the On Texas Football Tuesday live stream, some players. So you'll have that tomorrow morning on Coffee and Football and, the highlights of that. Rod, you want to tell them before we wrap up about Duck Camp? You're wearing the hat, looking sharp. What's going on with our partners at Duck Camp?
Oh, yeah, appreciate you guys. Just check it out, duckcamp.com. Duck Camp, of course, dedicated to giving people premium outdoor goods so you can outdoor good. That's right, whether you're an avid hunter or you prefer fishing, or if you're like me, when you go out, you just prefer to hang around the campsite, prefer the camaraderie of the campfire, if you will, the energy of the great outdoors, the camaraderie of it all. Whether you're one of those people who are into it like me, or you just want to be an observer, Duck Camp is the brand for you. They understand the beauty of outdoor living, the good times, the good friends that come along with living the outdoor life. So Duck Camp, premium outdoor goods, so you can outdoor good. You can go check out their new fall selection as well. It's already out. Actually, I've ordered a couple of hats and a couple of shirts because I thought they were pretty cool. Go check it out before they sell out, because Duck Camp growing more and more by the day. Duckcamp.com is where you can go check out all of their great new fall selection. See, my man CJ's already wearing one of the shirts. I'm wearing the hat, but I'm about to get some more gear from Duck Camp. So thank you once again to duckcamp.com for sponsoring the Tuesday night live stream.
Great stuff, Rod. Let me mention one other thing. Our man Bobby Burton sent me a note for folks who are traveling to Ann Arbor, Michigan in 25 days. I'm going to be up there for the game. There is, much like there was in Tuscaloosa for the big Alabama game last year, I should say, there is a great Texas tailgate in Ann Arbor. It's Texas at the Big House, a blue blood party. And all you have to do is go to the website, look and do a search. TexasBigHouse.party is the website you're going to be looking for there. They've got tickets, they've got details, location, as Texas stampedes into Ann Arbor to take on the Wolverines at the Big House. 2 of the 5 winningest programs all time. Haven't met since the 04 Rose Bowl. Is that right? Go all the way back to Lloyd Carr and Mac Brown. They're going to have pregame festivities and then come by after even for a postgame chat. They got ride shares set up for traffic to get in and out, and there's locations. You can share that event with other friends. It's right there in downtown Ann Arbor, right by the Big House. Check that out and get all the details moving forward. It's the Texas at the Big House, a blue blood party, and I'm sure Bobby can post the link or I can put it out, but it's TexasBigHouse.party is where you're going to find it. Texas at the Big House. There you go. That's it. Get you a general admission. Get your booze set up and unlock a code. They did it last year in Tuscaloosa, and it was huge. Here it goes again. If you're going to be up there now, you want to party and get tailgating before and after with Longhorn fans. That's how you do it. Remember, that is an 11 o'clock kick. That'll be noon in Ann Arbor. That'll be a noon kick for on Fox, but early mornings. But then the after party should be a lot of fun, especially if the Longhorns can find a win in the Big House. Good times, guys. We're counting the days, and it's that Michigan game is going to be an absolute, trench war between Texas and Michigan. And we're looking forward to it. Obviously, Colorado State before that. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, it'll be coffee and football and all the shows all day on the On Texas Football channel. Guys, any other thoughts tonight before we wrap?
No, thank you guys for all the super chats and all the questions. We appreciate you guys. Sorry we didn't get to everything. We'll get to it tomorrow. Hit us up. We'll be here.
Yeah. Can't wait to see what comes out of practice tonight. Of course, we'll have some updates on ontexasfootball.com. So come join us. And of course, we'll have them on Coffee and Football tomorrow, as well as right back here tomorrow evening as well.
Boom.
All right. Join the discussion right there on TexasFootball.com. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Rod. Thank you, CJ. Everybody have a great night. And tomorrow it'll be 17 days to the start of the college football season as we count them down to Colorado State on the 31st. Have a great night, everybody.
Hook 'em.